Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters podcast, the ultimate resource for ambitious, hardworking school owners that want to get their business and their life to the next level. My name is Dave Kovar. I'm a lifetime martial artist, business owner, speaker, and author. My goal is to empower listeners with the knowledge and the tools they need to break through barriers and really get their business and their life to the next level. Thanks for watching and enjoy. Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kovar, and with me today is Randy McElwee. How are you doing, sir?
Great, sir. How are you?
Good. And you know, we're laughing because he goes by Randy. I'm gonna call him Professor Randy. We've known each other probably, I don't know, 25 years or something, a long time, I think, right? I don't know.
Easily.
Yeah, and I had to make sure I got the pronunciation right because I always know him by Randy. But hey, so I'm super excited about having you on the call. You know what I think you bring to the table. You've been doing this. You're a martial arts professional for a really long time. But before that, you spent 23 years in the Army in special forces as a master sergeant. So you've had a lot of like leadership experience. And I thought what would be really valuable for our listeners for you to kind of share what you learned in the military and how it applied to your business and just kind of from a leadership standpoint. So kind of give us your story a little bit.
So, you know, I started martial arts I'm from a small town in West Virginia, and I started as a teenager, but my family really didn't have the money for me to pursue it. So I finished high school. I worked for construction for a short while, and then I joined the Army, and I took the option to go straight into trying out for Special Forces. And after about 5 years in the Army and completing my Special Forces training, my life stabilized enough to where I could get back to doing martial arts and pursue that training with Shotokan Karate. And so that's really kind of how I got started there. But while I was doing that, the opportunity came up for me to start to look at a combatives program for our Special Forces unit. And in doing that, you know, when I first discovered combatives training in the military, it was kind of like the immigrant story of coming to America.
Okay.
I had joined the military thinking that, hey, I would get that type of training. I would get a lot of martial arts and, you know, self-defense training. And it really wasn't that structured and it wasn't there. So just like the immigrants coming to America in the 1900s, everybody thought the streets were going to be paved with gold and, you know, it'd be there waiting for them. And then when they got there, they found out there were very few streets. The streets that were there were unpaved dirt roads, and they're going to have to build the streets. So that's kind of what happened with my pursuit of that training in the military. So I started creating a program for my Special Forces unit. And that's kind of what really got me, you know, started into it. And, you know, through that process, I met the Gracies. Met Hoist Gracie and we had Horian Gracie that we began working with and set up our training program with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu once we saw the effectiveness from the early UFCs. And that kind of took off and, you know, really gave me the opportunity to pursue the martial arts side. And the whole time that was kind of part of the leadership opportunity was to pave the way and create this program for the unit that I was in. And, you know, the things I've learned is leadership is really mission first, people always. The mission always matters, but the only way the mission truly succeeds, especially long term, is through the people that are going to execute it.
I want to hear that. I want to say mission first, people always.
Yes, sir. And it's a common Army theme.
Yeah.
But I think it reigns even more true, you know, in Special Forces because it's a little more tight knit. And you know, probably the best way to express it is something, and I know it's originally, I believe, a Theodore Roosevelt quote, but I actually first heard it come from you. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that has really been the driving force that, you know, I took it away from the military, but it's been the driving force behind running my martial arts academy for the last 20 years. And
so I have a neighbor. He's a combination. He was a justice at like the state a cappella court level, and he was a general in the National Guard, right? And he's this old dude. He's like 80 years old. But how often do you come across someone that's a general and a judge, right? You know, both. It's pretty remarkable. And so I asked him to speak to my Ascend group, which is my kind of high-level school owners, about 6 months ago. And I was asking him, I want to hear about his military experience because he spent however long, you know, in active duty before he did this. And his comment was what you just said. You basically, what I've learned is that when you treat people right, everything works better. And that's what he saw.
Absolutely.
The people that were successful in the military were people that basically, that went out of their way for their team.
Absolutely. Because, leaders balance accomplishment with preservation of the team, and burned out or broken teammates are mission failure waiting to happen. Long-term effectiveness always beats short-term wins. And that's what you want to, plan and kind of build on. You plan missions your team can sustain, not just survive. And that's a key principle for pretty much everything. Leadership to me is it's about command presence, and my leadership lessons from the mat and the missions. The key concept is leadership is not theory. As a former Green Beret, leadership isn't about rank, titles, or authority. It's forged under pressure, and it was learned as a Green Beret on missions where decisions had real consequences, as a school owner responsible for families, livelihoods, and culture, and every day on the mat shaping people, not just the techniques. And special forces and martial arts align so naturally because at its core, leadership is about developing people. It's developing students first as people, developing instructors foremost as people, and developing black belts above everything as people. Because skill without character it's a liability
Right,
on a
right.
team or a
Great.
school.
Great perspective, man. By the way, side note, my ADHD is kicking in. Is that a Spartan helmet behind you there?
It is, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that's great. I love it. Well, hey, what I'd like to a specific because us guys that never served in the military, always thank you for your service. By the way, I know you heard that, but
Thank you.
sincerely, it was something I wanted to do, and my dad talked me out of it. He was a World War II veteran, and he'd seen some bad stuff, and he wanted to keep me away from it. I remember I had a student and friend who was. The only person, well, the first person I knew personally that passed through his, he was in the military, and he actually, died in Afghanistan a long time ago. And I went to his funeral, and he was also his day job was he was a correctional officer, and so this was the first person. This would have been I don't know the year, but it would have been I think in the early mid '90s, and so I went to his funeral and. Everybody there was either in the military or in law enforcement, and then there was me, and I felt like I don't even deserve my man card, man. So so I always like to hear people's stories. But an example of leadership both ways when you were in the military, of great leadership that you saw, and then maybe examples of poor leadership. Anything jump
So
out for you?
and about your stories, I always loved the stories about your dad and his military time. I thought those were really awesome. And as far as like examples for leadership, great leadership was always done and witnessed day by day.
Okay.
You're talking about you see the guys that are your leaders that were always leading by example. They were out there first doing things, making it happen, and never asking you to do anything that you know they wouldn't do themselves.
Hmm.
And then a lot of the poor leadership examples have been more about people wanting to look good rather than do good.
Can you,
And
without naming names, can you remember a time when like somebody demonstrated what not to do and any effects that it might have had?
well, we had one incident when I was in the Gulf War, and we had a mission to take a military barracks complex that had been captured by the Iraqis when they invaded Kuwait, and we were supposed to retake that. We got there, and we were part of a coalition force with some Saudi soldiers, and we got there just at dusk, and because of that, they didn't want to enter the complex. They just didn't want to do it, and we had some commanders that that were part of the upper level that really weren't connected to us directly, but one of them decided that they would lead the way and show them how it was done, and then they would go into lead the charge into the city. Well, they went in and nobody went with them. So we got tasked to go in and get them out.
Wow.
And then the downside, it worked out okay. But after it was all said and done, I had guys that were there. Those folks that initiated that and got in trouble and created this fiasco actually got Bronze Star medals for their actions. And the guys on my team that went in and got them out got much less
Wow.
Army Commendation medals. So it was kind of a thing about recognition. And one example I've always heard that bodes well is give more than your share of the credit and take more than your share of the blame. And when you see poor leadership, it's usually because somebody's not giving credit to the other folks that made things happen, or they're more readily not taking blame when something
You
went
know,
wrong.
someone we both know very well, Professor Pedro Sauer, okay, would be the classic example of a guy that always goes out of his way to make everyone around him feel good and gives credit wherever he sees it. You know what I mean? Like you feel better with you're with him because what we forget, man, is giving someone a compliment doesn't cost us anything. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, and people that aren't able to do that are usually because they're insecure, you know, and they're trying to make themselves
Absolutely.
look good by maybe trying to keep other people down. And man, how powerful is it just simply when you see a good job to give a shout out. And then the flip side, you think about like the the football, the quarterback, the game's over and they lost the game. Okay, what is the quarterback that we aspire to be like, that we look up to? What does he say? Hey man, I could have done a better
My
job.
fault.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. The flip side is the guy that says, "Well, Bob, blames other people." You know, it's like, or that same quarterback the next week wins. What does he do? He gives credit to his teammate, man. You know, it's
Right.
like it seems
Absolutely.
so obvious, but it's a great reminder. I mean, how many times have I wanted to say, "Oh, I did that," you know, versus, people will know you by your actions. You don't have to, you don't have to, shout from the rooftops your accomplishments. You know, over time, people will know.
Right. And I think it also comes down to making hard decisions and establishing and sticking to standards. That's one of the things I saw from the better leaders. Some people waffle for popularity very easily. And the challenge of being a leader is sometimes you got to make the choice between lousy alternatives. And there aren't always any good options, but something has to be done, a decision has to be made, and then it has to be seen through. And that sometimes requires sticking to your guns, when the decision has been made. But you also have to be flexible enough to realize when maybe you haven't made the best
Right.
decision and you need to change course.
Right.
It's a
Right.
it's a tough area to be in always.
100%. You know, it's like, but that's why not everybody, rises to the top, so to speak. Well, so let's switch gears for a minute. Tell me how long you've been in your school and what are you teaching?
So we've been here and we've had our academy established since 2005. So 20 years last year was our
Outstanding.
anniversary. We teach primarily Gracie Jiu Jitsu, but we also have a traditional karate program. And oddly enough, when we first started 20 years ago, our traditional karate program was the mainstay. It was the core of everything we had going on. And then over time, and part of it, probably all of it would be my fault, is because of my focus and interest in gaining more knowledge in Gracie Jiu Jitsu, it got all the attention. And over time, all the students followed, and our student base has become primarily Gracie Jiu Jitsu. And we've been blessed enough that we've always had about a 70% adult population for the students, not your normal
Right,
martial
for
arts school.
sure. For sure. That's very cool. And you know what I see also, like, hey, as you know, man, I'm the multi-style guy. I like it all. Most of my time I spend doing jujitsu now, and I love it, of course. But one of the main reasons is I feel my age the least grappling. Like, kicking's a little harder now. I got a little this thing
Right.
going on here and that, but it's just, it's nice to be able to. You can also be competitive, as you know, and if you have the right partners, relatively safe, and you can kind of scratch that itch, right? Embrace your shadow,
Absolutely.
it's hard to spar hard. It's hard to kickbox hard every day. You can't do that, but you can grapple at a relatively decent pace on a regular basis if if you have the right environment and you don't let your ego get in the way, right? But what
That's the hard part.
I do see is like there's plenty of successful karate and taekwondo guys out, and there will be for a long time, no doubt. But with that said, there's no doubt about it. The trend is definitely moving, to jujitsu, and I see Muay Thai coming, like behind, but moving strong as well. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Like I have nothing but respect for a beautifully well done, like traditional karate kata, someone that does it. It's beautiful, right? And it's one of those
Absolutely.
things where I remember years ago seeing a poster of a Harley Davidson, a guy driving a Harley Davidson, and the caption was, "If I have to explain it, you wouldn't understand." Well, that's kind of how I feel about like kata, right? Like I know a bunch of kata. I love them. I'm happy to have learned them, but I look at them like old friends. I'm glad to know them, but I don't necessarily spend a lot of time with them anymore, right?
Right.
I've evolved, but there's something beautiful about that, and there always will be. And who am I to tell? Who are you or me to tell somebody else what they should teach? But with that said, definitely the trend, over half the schools that open in the country now are jiu-jitsu schools, and I don't think it's going to slow down at all, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but I'd be curious as to what you think the reason why it's moving that way so strongly.
Well, I think one reason is it's definitely out there, in the culture socially because of things like the UFC, the popularization of tournaments. It's gotten much more publicity and much more airtime than all of the other martial arts. And so, because of that, and a lot of key figures have spoken out positively about it,
Sure.
with guys like Joe Rogan putting it on podcasts and really, expressing the benefits of it, it's gotten a lot of backing from the public. So it's more well known than a lot of folks. I remember back when it wasn't, when people had no idea what jujitsu was, and I'm sure you do too. It was very different. And so I think those things go in trends. The downside, and one of the things I see, and you probably have a better perspective than I do because of a lot of the places you visit, I see a lot of the jujitsu academies, they don't quite have the professionalism of some of the martial arts,
Well,
karate and
here's
taekwondo based places.
Here's my concern. So first off, some of the stuff that I see, I went a couple of years ago. I competed at in the Worlds, right, and it was a great experience. I hadn't done a martial arts tournament since 1989. It was my last. Yeah, I competed for 20 years. First wrestling, then karate, and I thought I'm just going to do this, right? I'm not getting any younger. I had a great training experience. By the way, won one, lost one. The guy that I lost to was Rick Young. He's a multi-time world champion, amazing. He was clearly better than me. All good. But the point was, I've been to a million martial arts tournaments. And I've been to several jiu-jitsu tournaments too as a spectator. I show up, there's 10, I think they had 10,000 competitors over 4 days. You knew exactly where your ring was. You knew exactly what time you're going to. It was so organized compared to the karate tournament or the taekwondo tournament where and so part of it, the deal is the rules are so consistent. That'll also allow somebody like, let's say I travel a lot and I can't just go to another karate or taekwondo school and kind of understand how it works because everybody's got their own twists, their own stuff. In
True.
jiu-jitsu, you kind of can go wherever you want, and they're kind of following a similar format, kind of like a pickup basketball game, right? The rules are consistent for the most part, and that's I think been a big part of it, right? And the other thing I think is just my concern about it. To your point, is that I have I love the martial aspect of martial arts. I love the respect. I love the protocol. I love everything that goes along with that, and I think that's sacred. And what I don't like seeing as much is the people that don't look at this as a martial art. They look at it as a sport, and it's not a dojo; it's a gym. And I get it; it's
Right.
just a word. It's a word. I get it, but I think there's something that missing, and that's what I think that traditional martial arts like brings, and I think the perfect blend is being able to kind of keep that traditional feel to it, okay, but teach a nice progressive art.
Well, I think you hit on a key point there. It's really important anytime you're teaching violence, and let's face it, that's the end result of martial arts. You're sharing violence. There's a responsibility there that has to include some character. And sometimes programs these days with mixed martial arts, they're mixed up martial arts because they're not sharing that character aspect, or they're not imparting that responsibility that you have when you have that type of skill. And I think that's the downfall to some of it. I'm really excited about the places that still incorporate those values because I believe they're very important. And I think that's what makes it a dojo versus a gym. A lot of times people will refer to us as a gym, and we will always say, "Hey, we're not a gym. We're not. Our place doesn't smell like a gym. We're an educational academy where we teach people how to defend themselves and teach them the martial arts and the values that go with it, because we feel that's very important.
Yeah, man. Well, you just nailed it. Like, the nature that we teaching is violent. It obligates us to swing the pendulum to the other side and teach the emphasis of respect and courtesy and self-discipline. And not just for kids, of course, for kids, but for other people too. And, it's like what I think is also cool is I know that I have had a bunch of guys that have been kind of more gym type mindsets that I've been able to kind of spend some time with that kind of now get it. Like, I get it. There's a difference. I see what you're talking about. I see the value in bowing on the mat, and bowing in class and talking with people. I call it a Miyagi moment. I don't care how old you are. You enjoy that moment where everybody comes
Right.
together, even as adults, and you just impart a little wisdom. Here's what I learned. Here's how I failed. This is how it's helped me in my marriage, all that kind of good stuff. I think that's friggin' powerful, right?
It's very powerful. It's actually one of the things that connects martial arts for me to special forces, because when you're in that environment, it's the guys that you're with and the culture that they impart to you that really make it different. And part of that is just being brilliant at the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is built through competence, and that comes across. But it's also how they conduct themselves professionally. And there's a different professional standard whenever you're in a place that focuses on values and has a requirement to act a certain way, to behave a certain way, and to adhere to values with the violence that you're being taught.
Yeah, man. I like, so anybody that's listening, regardless of the style that you're teaching, I mean, of course, who am I to tell you what to do? You can do whatever you want, but I'll tell you what, we have this unique opportunity. We have someone's, people remember most when they have mental clarity, physical energy, and emotional calm. They're in that flow state, and in that moment, you got people coming to class, and you remind them, the importance of striving to be a better person, not just on the mat, but off the mat. And whether that means people hear that, man, they take it to heart. I have a gentleman just last week that put in a big ass fan for us, okay, at one of our dojos. And he's a parent, and he also trains with us. And by the way, we wanted to pay him. He wouldn't take any money for it. I go, well, come on, man. I'm always happy to pay someone for their services. He goes, no, man. It's all good. I go, well, what can we, going forward, I want to use your skills. I'm not going to do this unless you allow me to pay. And he goes, okay, going forward, we can talk, but this one's on me. And I go, thanks. Not necessarily. He goes, you don't understand. This program changed my life. I was an alcoholic. I was able to break that through your training. What you've done for my son has been remarkable. I owe you guys, this is the least I can do. No worries. Well, man, that's powerful. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that we have. This is like, man, it's kind of like we're teaching people the Force, but are we going to teach them to be Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader? That's we're in control of that as an instructor.
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity to impact lives. And we see it. One of the things that I started whenever I first, even before I opened the academy, I was in the military, in special forces. I got my choice of assignments after Afghanistan, and I chose for my last assignment to come to the University of Georgia and teach at the military science department. So I got to teach leadership. I got to have an impact on the future leaders of the Army. But while I was there, I was teaching the cadets, military combatives. And one Monday morning, I had a young lady that came in and said over the weekend she'd been attacked and escaped an actual assault because of the things that we had taught. And so I got together with one of our other sorority girls that was a cadet, and we put together a program that, our SAFE program, Sexual Assault Fundamental Escapes, to teach these girls how to defend themselves. And we've done it all over the campus. And it's been one of our greatest successes and greatest opportunities to impact lives. We've done it for over 20 years now. And, we teach groups of sorority girls, up to 250 girls at a time, on the lawn of their sorority house. My son and I went a couple years ago to London to teach a version of it, and then to actually teach some jiu-jitsu seminars there. We went out to California, out to your neighborhood, just north of Los Angeles, a little over a year ago, to teach a version there. But it's one of those things that we get a lot of feedback from, to where we're impacting lives and really helping these young ladies. And some of them have had assaults and have had incidents, and they're trying to overcome that and get back to normal lives. And they've told us that what we're doing has made that possible.
Amazing. So powerful. Hey, man, I want to be respectful of your time. We're gonna wrap shortly. This is what I would like to ask you. All
Yes,
right?
sir.
I'm a struggling school owner. I've been in business for a few years. Ah, man, I'm having a hard time making a go of it. What would you tell me? Give me some advice.
So first thing I would tell you is, you got to get a structure and a program. Usually people are struggling because they don't have a direction and they don't have a step-by-step process. And usually that's because they haven't sought out the right mentoring or the right training in order to develop their processes. And I know for me, when I first started, I was a soldier and I didn't know how to be a businessman. I'd spent all that time in the military, and the bottom line is you've got to make a profit. You've got to make money. And as a government employee, I had no idea how to do that except to
Right.
waste other people's money. And so I had to change my perspective. And once I figured out that I wasn't a business person and I should stop trying to be one, that I was a special forces soldier with a new mission to run a business.
Love it.
So then I started approaching it just like I would a mission when I was in special forces. First, I had to get the training and understand what it was going to take for mission success. And in order to do that, I had to seek out the people that had done it effectively, had accomplished it, and had a training program in order to make it possible so I could do it step by step. And there's a lot of folks out there. That's how you and I met initially, is through EFC. You run a great program with Satori that gives a lot of help to those folks. We help several organizations and individuals as well, and instructors to develop their programs. But you got to start and go systematically, step by step, to establish a process that's going to be effective. You can't do it haphazardly. There are folks that get away with it and do it as a personality-based business, but that's not a success system. That's just luck. And luck and hope aren't a good strategy.
Well, I'll tell you, it's so good to have a nice chat with you, and it's so cool that you and your son run. How cool is that, right? That you get to do this with your son. That's the business. It's like my son's also involved in the business, which is exciting. He runs one of our locations, and sometimes it's not easy running a martial arts school. But what's easy, right? What's easy? But sometimes we do have to remember how blessed we are and the impact we can have. And man, I'll tell you what, we can't always control what's going on around us, but what we can control is our attitude, right? And our actions, right? And like that's wherever you are when you're running your school, man. Roll your sleeves up, find some mentor, and then put in the work, and usually good stuff will happen.
Absolutely.
Professor Randy, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you, and I hopefully our paths will meet. We'll meet in person sometime in the not too distant future.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. As always, enjoyed talking to you, and best of luck to you with everything you're doing. I love what you're doing with the podcast and getting the word out and helping all these other martial arts professionals with their schools.
Outstanding, man. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Take care. Thank you for tuning in today to our podcast. I hope you found it valuable and inspirational. To stay connected, please subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcasts. If you enjoyed today's show, please give us a 5-star review. And we really sincerely would appreciate some feedback. Your feedback helps us to create high quality content that will help others in the future. If you'd like to follow me, you can go to Dave Kovar on Facebook or Hanchy Dave Kovar on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on next episode.